Do you talk to President Bush 43 at all?
I do.
Like how often? Do you just call up and say how you doing?
No, every couple of weeks. Yeah.
And
he emails now too.
He does? You email?
I email. Yeah.
You never emailed before?
I never emailed before. I'm learning.
So anyway, you getting any rest now that your lives have changed so much?
Some. I got to go fishing last weekend in Wyoming, which I love doing. And
get anything?
I'll get a lot more. Yeah, we had a good day. So it'll be life's a little more orderly. But it's not the first time we've gone through this. I mean, this is the fourth time I've left government for the private sector. So it's, as Lynn said the other day, though, she said this is the first time not only did you lose your job, you lost the house, you lost the airplane, So she had a long list of
but it really
things that have changed.
It's amazing, though, like you're going 100 miles an hour and then all of a sudden one day it's almost stopped and you have to do a complete transition in your lives. I mean, how vastly different. I mean, we just heard President Bush 43 just speaking the other night with President Clinton. Your lives certainly changed quickly.
It's true, but it's not new. We've done it before. When I left the Ford administration and went home to Wyoming and ran for Congress, left the Defense Department and became a private businessman and so forth. So.
What's it like having him? He's around the house more, I guess, for your mother?
Well, it's great. And my kids, their school bus goes by their house some afternoons, so the grandkids can get off the bus and spend the afternoon with them. And it's nice having my mom and dad back again. So we're enjoying it, getting back together as a family.
And I bet you're glad not to have that Gitmo problem that the president has on his plate.
Well, we've wrestled with Gitmo through most of the administrations I've been part of. So.
Well, he said that he's going to close it.
He did, and I think that's a mistake. I think you need to have Guantanamo Bay, and if you didn't, you'd have to invent it. You've got to have some place to hold bad actors. The only other option really is to kill them, or you can bring them to the States and put them through our normal criminal system. But lots of times that won't work because the reason you know of their activities is through intelligence sources and methods. And unless you want to blow your capabilities in terms of how you track these folks, you can't very well have a public trial that discusses those kinds of issues. So it's a unique set of problems, but they are resolved by keeping Guantanamo open. And I think that in the end, even if you look at the president's speech the other night, when he talked about 3 or 4 different categories of people here, there'll be a significant number that you can't try because the information you have on them, for example, comes from intelligence sources. You can't release because they're a danger to the community. They'll go right back into the jihad business if you let them. And so you've got to hold them in some capacity. And you'll end up having Guantanamo or something like Guantanamo Bay. Maybe you ought to go down there and rename the facility, hang a new plaque over it. But you need Guantanamo under these conditions.
It's really a complicated job, isn't it? It looks so different from the outside, but when you think of all the tough decisions that come across your plate, and it's not an easy job to be president or vice president, is it?
They're all tough. By the time they get to that level, the easy ones have been resolved by somebody else. And that's what, he gets paid the big bucks for, and gets to live in that big house. And they're all volunteers. The only one I know who didn't really volunteer to be president was Jerry Ford. And after he'd been there a while, he wanted to continue being president. So it's it is a tough job. We depend a great deal on the men or women who fill that slot. And it is legitimately the most difficult job in the nation.
One last question is on GM. We've spent an awful lot of money since last fall on GM to only have them end up in bankruptcy. Going back to last fall, would you have let them go into or would you have pushed them into bankruptcy, do you think, then? I mean, now that we've spent billions, or did you think that it was sort of a good idea to do what we've been doing?
Well, I thought that eventually the right outcome was going to be bankruptcy. That they had to go through such a dramatic restructuring to have any chance of survival, that they had to be able to renegotiate labor contracts and so forth. And the president decided that he did not want to be the one who pulled the plug just before he left office.
Why?
Well, I think he felt these are big issues, and he wouldn't be there through the process of managing it but in effect would have sort of pulled the plug on GM, and that was one of the first crises the new administration would have to deal with. So he put together a package that tided GM over until the new administration had a chance to look at it, decide what they wanted to do.
But it's cost us billions to get, I mean, you know,
It has.
I mean, and we've now spent
government-
billions.
And now the government owns a big chunk of General Motors. That bothers me. I don't like having government own those kinds of major financial enterprises. I think it does damage to our long-term economic prospects when we get government involved in making those kinds of decisions. The private sector then I think will be very different, function differently if it's full of government-owned enterprises than would otherwise be the case.
I think this also sets up, though, you know, an interesting debate and discussion for the American people going forward. And I think that as you see this administration, you know, moving the government towards playing a much larger role in our economy and in society, you know, you're going to see, I think, you know, many of those people who describe themselves today as independent voters, for example, taking another look at this administration, at the way they voted this time around, you know, realizing, I think, that they don't really want the government controlling vast segments of our economy. They don't want to pay higher taxes. I think it will, you know, put us in what is probably a healthy situation in terms of a debate about the role of the private sector going forward here.
Think we're going to see a lot of Liz Cheney in the next couple of years?
He is going to see a lot of
I'll see a lot of her. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it sounds like she's getting involved in a lot of things.
Well, I would, you know, I'm of course a proud father, but I'd love to see her run for office someday. I think she's got a lot to offer, and it's been a great career for me. And if she has the interest, and I think she does, and I would like to see her to embark upon a career in politics.